Hi all, good morning. Welcome to today's session on GST. Let's make a very humble beginning. As far as today's discussion is concerned, we will initially introduce the topic, discuss some aspects, and then proceed with the introductory part relating to GST. And also we'll touch upon the legal background associated. Usually a very good experience we would have in terms of a very great physical experience of we all coming in together. Today all of us are virtually located at different locations spread across the length and breadth of this country, maybe outside India also a few of you. In this background, yes, as far as today's discussion is concerned, we will first take up what are going to be part and parcel of our whole another 120 hours of experiences. The next 120 hours, what are we going to do? What topics we are going to touch, and how those topics are going to be handled by us? What topic would come after what, so on and so forth. All this discussion will make a upfront discussion on all these matters. To start with, before me getting into any further discussion, I would want to make a very serious and humble request that I want all of you to have your given name, no doubt, given name. A lot of you are all like that. In any case, I want this practice has to be followed throughout our whole session, and I'm very clear on this. Uh, I'm sorry if I see any initials, any tech name, you will be put into the waiting room. No doubt about it. Unless it is changed, it will not be. You will not be allowed inside the virtual meeting room. Coming back here, as part of our discussions relating to goods and services tax, we'll start with goods and services tax, GST. As far as goods and services tax is concerned, maybe we can completely bifurcate our whole discussion into three, or I would not even say three, maybe four different broader based discussion to start with those kind of discussion. Initially, we will be discussing on introduction to GST, followed by legal background, introduction, legal background, and further we will also discuss about the main definitions, or else I would say in this way, all those important definitions under GST. So that would be our start point. Maybe the whole agenda for this week could be completing this A and B. Moving forward, getting into a very crucial word called as scope of supply. A lot of us at our earlier level would have discussed all these topics, are much familiarized, and a genuine thought might come why I need to read it again. Maybe a little more understanding is required, or maybe sometimes even for some of us, a better clarity is required. As simple as that, with earlier maturity level, we read this topic, all of us, including me. if in case, unfortunately, you had the opportunity to listen to me earlier at your earlier levels, with that be the case, you'll find a little, what is it, the examples are getting repeated because of a very simple reason. I am convinced on that example. For me, that example is more important to sell the concept, and that concept will be sold very aptly in this example. And this is a common practice that a lot of us do. Once we are convinced on a particular example to sell the concept more aptly, we again stick back to those discussions. Coming back here, this introduction, legal background, important definition, scope of supply. Closing up with all these, maybe the very fundamental requirement for understanding of GST, which is going to be running throughout various discussion, we would pitch into normal levy under GST. What do we mean by normal levy? When we go back to those basic aspects, the taxable event we read, no doubt it is supply. When there is a supply, there is going to be a tax. The levy part of it, how that is going to be taxed. In fact, this normal levy, we can call it coupled with another topic, nature of supply. Nature of supply. And of course, you can call it as levy under GST, but there are two types of levy. There is something called as normal levy and composition levy. We would have it in two different ways. Once that is over, as usual, as I earlier highlighted, composition levy under GST. No doubt we will have a subtopic called as a clean discussion on reverse charge mechanism. Why? Because of late this scope of the levy is getting discussed, or sorry, extended through a model called as reverse charge mechanism. What do we mean by this reverse charge mechanism? The idea is something like this. In case of few services, government has highlighted that the supplier of the tax, the supplier will not pay the tax. To the contrary, a recipient would be paying the taxes. So coming back here, the supplier is not bound. It is the recipient who is liable to pay tax. So a clear discussion of about, as of today, 24 different services and 6 different goods would be discussed on reverse charge mechanism. On completion of this, we would make our beginning towards a very crucial topic called as place of supply. Place of supply, which helps us in determining to which state the revenue should go. The revenue should go to the production state or a producer state, or the revenue should go to the consumer state. That discussion is based on a thorough analysis. Let me repeat it. A very clear discussion. Maybe these words we would have not used at our earlier levels when it comes to production state or a producer state or a consumer state and all. Maybe for a little references we would have discussed. Here at a little advanced level we will be learning it. The moment when we are discussing issues in place of supply, we will also cross-read with nature of supply and levy aspects and try to take positions associated with it for the purpose of our case study and scenario-based questions. I'm sure a lot of you are all aware, there are case study questions exclusively designed on place of supply, value of supply, composition levy as part of exam requirements. So those decisions of case study questions often comes on these 5-6 topics: input tax credit, composition levy, place of supply, reverse charge coupled with exemptions. So taking up those aspects, this time again we will differently read it from a final perspective. A reverse charge will be discussed with exemptions, along with exemptions. It's a kind of a discussion. It would never happen to you at an earlier level because a lot of you are not exposed to some of those exempted services. Now here, be it exempted goods, exempted services, but exempted goods many we don't have, but exempted services we have a lot. So a reverse charge coupled with exemption, those are all some newer aspects that we would pitch in. Coming back here, post or place of supply, time of supply, no doubt, time of supply of goods or services, determination of time of supply of goods or services, followed by your value of supply, a very important section where we will, in fact, till time of supply, everything will go as a unstructured case study discussion and unstructured problems, practical problems. Because while on the go, we can take up a problem. You don't need to have a structured format for taking up a practical problem. I can come up with situations instantly, and that instant situations might trigger you or allow you to uh, come up with a solution instantly on the chat box. Don't be much bothered about it. I'm one fellow who been having a little experience on this Zoom. Because of this, I would be able to navigate through you in a more comfortable way. If you want, we will have a polling here. If you want, we will have a separate Q&A discussion here. If you want, we can get you all those answers which worked out at your end, and get answers at it, which will make your viewing experience as a very interactive experience. Coming back here, getting into value of supply. As part of our value of supply is concerned, no doubt value of supply of goods, services, both are going to be covered. This would be read along with all the detailed rules associated with it. It doesn't mean for others there are not rules. No, for everything rules are there. But when it comes to this discussion, uh, the rules play a very important role in determining value, and we have some special methods of valuations also. One minute. Maybe my video would have buffered or audio would have buffered because my internet connection dropped down and again it went up. So in case if my internet connections drop down, I would know upfront. I'm running a speedometer, so that would help me in knowing it. One, if it drops down, I would repeat that point. Don't be bothered about it. In case further systematically you get a breakage in the voices, you can always put it on the chat box. Coming back here, when it comes to time of supply, value of supply, and more specifically on value of supply, as part of value of supply, the discussions that we want to make over here is on the complete valuation aspects we will discuss. Moving forward, apart from that, on the certain specialized methods of valuation, which are applicable part and parcel of the value of supply. Moving forward, after value of supply of goods or services read along with valuation rules, here comes up our master blaster, input tax credit. Let me repeat. Input tax credit, a threadbare analysis of your section and a rule and a complete understanding is required because your case study questions, because your various other questions warrants those discussions. So that sums up a complete discussion of a particular part. In fact, for me, this is the basic fundamental block. And somebody who is good in this block can have or can enjoy a complete thorough understanding on this aspects. So they can comfortably have a thorough understanding on this topic. So all that I want to highlight over here is nothing great. These are all these are all cases where we would call them as your first part of your discussion. Once this part is getting crystallized and we are through with this part, here comes up our next part of our discussions relating to GST, which would make its beginning towards registration and all those registration related forms that need to be used and compliances that are there. Post registration, a complete discussion on all those documents and books and records. Documents, books and records. Let me repeat. A very careful understanding, a clear discussion on various type of document which need to be maintained as form part of your section 34, and what are the records need to be maintained as part of your 35. All this would be forming part of these discussion, including the records, how long it need to be maintained, can it be digitalized, how it has to get proceed. All are part and parcel of our discussions associated with it, which will be discussed over here. Then followed by returns under GST. We will be having a basic understanding of the proposed new returns also, which will be including new returns under GST, which are proposed. See, in my humble view, whether this return is going to reach its finality, we have different thoughts as of today. As of now, it is a document issued by the government without any great legal sanctity. As of now, it's a document issued, basically a process approved by the government, may come today, may come tomorrow. There are thoughts to continue with the existing model itself. I'm sure all of us currently would have been aware of a model called as Form GSTR1 for statement of outward supply, and Form GSTR3B, a summary of details of transaction, very popularly called as Form 3B and 1. This Form 3B and 1 is a current model. Somehow government is planning to continue with the same model, not inclined to come up with the new proposed model. This is the day in which I record this, the day in which I speak this. On this day, this is the status quo. In spite of that, already we have a process flow for the new returns, how it is going to be, as it is a document which need to be released by government to be aware of certain basic aspects associated with it. For that purposes, we would be discussing about all this, including your payment of taxes, where there is a new change in the set off process has taken place. Based on the set off process, after that change, the decisions are going to be little different, including that plus calculation of interest, how the set off happens, which ledger has to be used first. If I have credit cash, which has to be used first for the purpose of set off. Again, I would have three types of credit: CGST, SGST, IGST, which I have to use first. A discussion about all that would be forming part of your payment of taxes, followed by registration, documentation, return, payment of taxes, assessment, and audit. Now that sums up the basic aspects. We are coupling it up with two more topics. One is job work, no doubt. Two is export of goods or services. Of course, no doubt. In short, you can call it as zero rated supply, a complete discussion on exports. what are the models available, how to take it forward, how a decision has to be taken. Then refund under GST. Now, so this part is a part of, that would sum up the second part of a discussion. This part is a part of discussion where you will have a more of a procedural discussion happens. This form has to be filed. This is how the in online it has to be done, and if this aspect has to be taken care, this document has to be filed, this document to be maintained. The working will be only this. As part of payment of taxes, we will have a lot of practical problem associated with it. Rest all will be only case study based question or scenario based question. As part of job work, export, we will again have sometime a practical problem, but more of a situation. In this situation, what you have to take decision. Refund, yes, a mathematical, a practical problem would come into play associated with this discussion. Coming back here, that sums up your second part of the discussion, wherein which a lot of procedural aspects comes into play. In fact, we would you would be knowing more form numbers. You would be knowing more of how the usage of the GST system happens. A lot more only on this area. Moving forward from this part of the discussion, getting into the maybe a last part of our discussion associated with it. The last part of the discussion exclusively coins certain or in-houses certain topics, which is of a little, not little, a lot of importance from final perspective. Now, to start with some of those topics relating to those aspects, it could be your sections relating to demands, uh, inspection, search, seizure, followed by demand interest penalty, inspection, search, seizure, or it is going to be your authority of advance ruling. A very small discussion on anti profiteering authority may not be much warranted because it is a provision which is fading down in its spec, but as part of this, yes, it requires offenses under GST. What are the various offenses that are done under GST? How it would be also handled, associated with, then followed by appeals and revision. In case if I have an order, can I get or my order revised by the higher authority? If there is a mistake apparent on record, can I make it? Authority has passed an order. I want to fight against that. Now, what is the appeal remedies that are available for me? Questions like that would be discussed in appeals and revision. Post appeals and revision, we have a very big discussion on miscellaneous provisions. Uh, and a small reference to transitional provision. Now, why I'm highlighting this at last, because transitional provision again coming up with its aging effect, liability to pay tax. Now, these are all our independent topics. Now, maybe till here, till the second part, you would have some references that you can draw from your earlier level. But this third part is out and out an exclusive final discussion. It will not be forming part of the erstwhile level discussion. It's a clear area where final alone will have a complete grip on these discussion, or it is intended to be kept only for final. I would put it in that way, where final would have a complete control over these stuff. Now, coming back here. Yes. Now, these are all the broader three specs. Maybe time and again, I am not sure. I don't think so. I have not slipped any topic or missed any topic. I've brought it everything. But in case anything is missed, it should be form part of between these three buckets in a broader way. Apart from this, do we have anything separately to discuss? Yes, we have two more fellows to take it up. Those fellows are one, exempted services, completely exempted services, and another discussion which is going to be a specific discussion on exempted goods, a discussion which is applicable only for CMA. Those noble soul alone will read through it. Other souls are all ordinary souls, so for them and all, it is not applicable. Okay, one that attraction, yes. So only for CMA, so we'll come with that tagline. Only for CMA. Okay. Why? Don't ask me. Okay, there are some something which need to be understood by us. So if you go back, exempted goods, exempted services is an independent topic. In fact, all these are all independent topic. Within their parts, it maybe part A has to go in the chronological order. Part B also has to go in the chronological order because earlier level discussion is important. Part C and these exempted goods, exempted services, all are it's all not nothing is what to say is dependent on other discussions. All are independent discussion. In case if we have a special session and if you're going to handle, let's say about for about 4 hours, if you're going to have time with appropriate breaks, then we would take it up either a exempted goods or a exempted services for discussion because it warrants that amount of. So this is the broader scope of this topic. So that would also sum up the first part of our discussion relating to yes. Now all is yours. By and large, we will go in this model only. I'll generally not deviate from this model. There would not be need. Somehow I'm convinced this is the way in which it has to go. So this is the way in which it has to go. This is how it has to be taught, all that and all. So that sums up our the first part of our level discussions. I'll do one thing. I'll first share this whiteboard discussion to all of you all. Just kindly confirm. I have just shared a file. If all of you could able to get it, preferably people who are viewing it from your desktop system, your laptop, would be able to receive this file. I doubt whether you will receive it if you view it from your pads or mobile phone. Mobile phone, it will not come. I'm damn sure. When it comes to pads, I doubt whether it is coming. But people who are all viewing it from your desktop, yes, it's nothing great. Often you can always take print screen. I do understand. But again, this is just a share from this end. Can some of you confirm in case if you have received it? Because for the last 40 minutes, I alone on a one-way speaking. So Ganapati confirmed, Gayatri has confirmed, Vaishnavi, Pradeep, Vidya, Shweta, Dhanraj, Arun, Lakshmi, Shruti. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Great. So good. Good to go. Come back here for the next part of our discussion. Post our discussion relating to GST. We'll take it up. What would be as part of customs or what is available in stores for us for customs? Customs law, a well settled law or well settled principle. But again, broadly we can bifurcate that into two broader aspects. In fact, in that broader way only we are going to discuss. We are not going to deviate from that broader discussion model. To start with, yeah, as usual, introduction and legal background. Introduction and legal background for customs, followed by a clear discussion on levy of customs, when customs duty will be levied. A discussion on section 12 of Customs Act would help us. Different types of duty under customs. There are going to be different types of duties that are going to be levied under customs. We have at least 5 to 6 different types of duties which are all brought in very recently. After GST introduction, we have this IGST compensation cess that we are aware. Something very interestingly came very new is infrastructure cess, healthcare cess. These are all something new on customs law, which is introduced at the time of import of goods. Coming back here, post introduction, legal background, levy, types of duty under customs. Different types of duties under customs. Our discussion next would move in the direction of your determination of exchange rate and rate of tax. Two crucial elements of customs. In fact, many times our game would be only on this determination of exchange rate and rate of tax, followed by moving forward from determination of exchange rate and rate of tax as usual, valuation of goods under customs and its associated rules. Maybe the last two topics, determination of exchange rate and determination of rate of tax, plus valuation of goods and its rules. These two topics will, plus of course, coupled with types of duties. These three topics are the most the topics that involve a lot of practical problems associated with it. We keep on doing problems. I would be dictating problems or sharing you some problems which is already part and parcel of it, or instantly change the existing problem, instantly change the 2 3 points associated with it to make it that problem comes with little more spicy to you. A doubt might come as far as um, how far this new learnings are going to be on this topic. In my view, there will be a lot of new learning coming into play. You'll be able to more conceptually get connected. Why this is done, why this addition happens. If it is going to be like this, how the addition would have been, and you'll somehow identify the link between your GST valuation and the customs valuation. Technically, GST valuation is a little borrowal from customs valuation. Customs law is the mother legislation, so old legislation. From there, some of those definitions of um, GST are borrowed from customs law. So, given that background, you could able to have a clear connect until what point in time customs will play a role. Customs IGST will be collected. After what point in time GST will come into play, customs will withdraw itself. So all this would be forming part of it, followed by classification of goods. A clear discussion on classification of goods, read along with the general interpretative rules. Let me repeat it. This classification of goods topic, though discussed in at final level, though we discuss this at final level, we would maybe I would say something like this. We would not call it only for customs law. For the purpose of interpretation under the goods or services, we often use this principle only. That is classification of goods or services under GST. For that also, we opt this principle only. There is not something new that we are going to follow. We will follow the same existing GIR rules, general interpretative rules that are there. Which service I have to select, whether I have to select renting a cab service or renting a motor vehicle service. This discussion warrants because one is liable for reverse charge for a particular time, one more is not liable for a reverse charge for a particular time. One's rate of tax is different from the other. So things like that. Be it goods, be it services, the need for classifying them becomes important. A discussion about that would be classification of goods, followed by post classification of goods, all this aspect. Import and export procedure. A discussion on how the process of export import happens in customs law. That is going to be something would be closing down on this aspects of part A discussion. Yes. Coming back here, getting into as part of the next part discussion on this, to start with duty drawback that is given on goods, followed by warehousing of goods. See baggage rules. Which is going to be some I would put in this way some miscellaneous topic, miscellaneous provisions, powers of customs officer. There itself, search, seizure will come, powers of customs officer. renal patients. So maybe all this, a few of them you might be aware, maybe read it at your earlier level, some of you. For a lot of you, this is new. So broadly, two parts. The first part and the earlier part takes a big chunk of time and warrants a great discussion. The second part is comparatively little lesser time it would take, and it can be discussed. So, somehow I will put it in here itself. One more bit fellow will come. That fellow will be called as foreign trade policy. That fellow is your farming part. So, now that sums up your complete discussion associated with it. This is a broad sketch of, no doubt, of both customs and GST law to be discussed. So coming back here, these are all your broader topics that are going to be discussed associated with it. And when it comes in terms of the time, can have a very rough allocation if in case you are little interested on what is my time frame that within which we will be taking up all these topics, or how much time frame do we need to spend for each. In my end, a time frame that would be spent on part A of discussion, all put together, will be roughly about a 30-hour discussion, could be this area, taking up everything together, all aspects associated with it, and things like that. Coming back here, this should be roughly about 25 hours of discussion. And here, on demand interest penalty inspection of miscellaneous provision, though voluminous, we can, in fact, about 30, 34 sections you would have. It would start with 143 and end with 174. Though it is little voluminous, we can close it because the usage of it from a respective law perspective is little less. Now, somehow a 20-hour discussion is feasibly possible from those aspects. When it comes to exempted goods services, we expect sometimes it goes up, it goes down. All these exempted goods, exempted services, all this put together, a rough allocation of both together, maybe I would take up a 25-hour discussion. And when it comes to discussion on here, over here, it is a clear discussion of 20 hours, and here it would be another spent of another 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 hours, and so 3 hours for FT maximum, one class. This is the rough sketch. Okay, sometimes these sketches are all differ. These are all rough numbers based on experiences. What actually live happens, no one knows. Okay, you all will check. Okay, this is what is the time frame. This is what within which we can do. So somewhere be prepared for all these. Prepared for all these discussions. Yes. Nandini, you have raised that you have not received it. Nandini, I would recommend if you are viewing it from a desktop system or a laptop, you should have received it. Okay. Else, don't be much bothered about it. If you have any WhatsApp group, you can circulate among yourself. Nothing great. It's not a great content. So that sums up the discussion on the introductory phase. We'll do one thing. Having said all this, we'll make a very humble beginning on this topic. Just give me a minute. I'll load the presentation. Yes, thank you. Hope my audio video is very convenient to you. I'm today not using my regular broadband connection. I'm just using it from my mobile phone tethering facility. Welcome back. Some introductory discussion. You're all masters, I know. I'm not denying. Okay. You're all aware of many things. Okay. Dear, pardon me if you know that. Listen to me for the next 15 to 20 minutes, which will be on some basic introduction for implementing GST. One of the biggest challenge this country was facing at least 3 years before was in the indirect tax front. There were too much of complications, and India was completely divided pocket to pocket, and organizations were not able to take any decisions in terms of their pricing. And a very strong demand came from the international market that doing business in India becomes a lot more difficult because throughout India there is no unified laws to be applicable, and certain organizations who are interested in coming in and started putting up some manufacturing plants also faced certain challenges, like no doubt in that state they would be operating well, but when they start transacting with other states, the kind of compliance requirement was high, and it differed from state to state. You should think only this discussion from all those big time multinational companies, big time companies perspective. I don't want you to think from a small and a tiny industry perspective. Uh, you should think of supplier of a goods who supply goods throughout India. You should think of supplier of a service who supplies services throughout India. And in supplying services throughout India, he also uses goods in his services. Absolutely challenging. And some of the items where there were clear double taxation. The moment people, those said it is services, they have been asked to pay VAT on it, which is goods, treating it as goods. Sometimes a very serious issue went whether it is a goods or it is a service. These are all pre-GST situations. So there was a need felt that we should have a comprehensive legislation, which means be it manufacture, be it sale, be it service, be it every kind of transactions should be taxed in India. So that was the birth for the need of a levy like or a legislation like something called as goods and services tax, GST. This goods and services tax, no doubt, it's a comprehensive levy. You can't say it is like the erstwhile value added tax, or otherwise called as sales tax, which is levied by state government, that if you make a sale it will be liable to tax. If you do a service, it is not covered under that legislation. Central state government had that power. If you manufacture a goods and then sold, then for the sale portion state government will collect tax. For the manufacturing portion, the central government will collect tax. Again, when it comes to the services industry, central government used to collect tax. Again, for service tax registration, a separate compliance. For central excise, there was a separate compliance. There was, again, under VAT law, there was a separate compliance. All this created for the, preferably for the big time industries, big time taxpayers, a lot of difficulty. Keeping that in mind, plus India was already prepared and in demand of a comprehensive levy. This was brought. Having brought a GST, what is the advantage of GST? See, throughout the world, and of course, including India, the tax is payable on a single value. A tax is payable on a single value. Maybe you can look in this way. On a common value, both government will collect tax. From a little desi perspective, If you're going to look at from an international perspective, they call it as a single tax on supply of goods or services. Now, are we living like that only? Are we living a single tax on goods or services? Our discussions are no, because we tweaked it for an Indian perspective, the international law. In an international forum, in an international discussion, yes, goods services are liable at single rate. You do goods, you do services, pay us 12%, pay us 18%. That is how some of the countries have implemented GST on a same value, base value remains same. But in India, we never opted that single tax. We have tweaked it for our conveniences. Why all that we can take it up as a separate discussion, not now. But there is a reason behind all those models. Followed by one of the important difference between the erstwhile legislation and this legislation. Let me repeat. This is the fundamental difference. In fact, to learn this point alone or to revisit this point, to have a complete understanding of this point alone, we are on this particular discussion, which is GST is a destination based consumption tax. No doubt it is a consumption tax where goods are consumed, where services consumed. If a transaction is for a consumption, a tax will be levied on that. No doubt. But it is a destination based consumption tax. In India, prior to implementing GST, we had origin based taxation. Now, what do we mean by origin based taxation? Where from the transaction originates, to that government tax revenue will go. Destination based taxation means what? To where the goods or services are going to be destinated, to that location the goods or service, the GST revenue will go. For example, if goods are manufactured in Tamil Nadu and sold to a dealer in Andhra Pradesh, in the erstwhile regime, pre-GST regime, often we will call it as pre-GST regime, post-GST regime. In a pre-GST regime, a revenue will go to which government? In a pre-GST regime, or I think all of you have chat box, all of you have keypads, so you can go select your chat box and type your answer so that it comes to me, okay? So that you can have a comfortable. So I will also get acknowledged. You are also listening this conversation, okay? So me coming back here, good Ganapati, good Abhirami, yes, Hari or Gayatri, Uma J, Balaji, yes, Varshnavi, Nandini, good. Points for our discussion is when from Tamil Nadu, goods are sold to Andhra Pradesh, then the whole discussion would be the goods will be when from Tamil Nadu, goods are sold to Andhra Pradesh under a pre-GST regime, tax revenue on this transaction will go to Tamil Nadu, origin-based taxation. In a GST environment, it is going to be a destination-based taxation, which means in GST environment, if goods are sold from Tamil Nadu to a dealer in Andhra Pradesh, tax revenue will go to Andhra Pradesh. So the state where the goods are consumed, the state where the services are consumed, to that state revenue will go. This is a complete shift in the Indian taxation regime, Indian revenue allocation regime. In fact, understand why the state governments were against of Indian government. The state governments were against the central government on account that preferably the producer state. If you would have seen, who would have said Zindabad was only three fellows. First was Maharashtra, first Maharashtra, second Gujarat, third Tamil Nadu. These three fellows. Why these three fellows? Biggest producer fellows are these fellows. At least in the top 10, if you put top 5, these fellows will come and take its ranking. Now, why they said? Because their tax revenues will go for a hanky-panky discussions. Because those states are known for its producers. They are all producer states, origin-based allowed the producer to takes that producer state to takes the tax revenue, the destination base GST allow to take the tax revenue, or the tax revenue will go to the respective consumer states. Now, when it is coming back a little more further discussion on it, GST is not only a consumption tax, GST is also a multi-point system, or a multi-stage destination based consumption tax. It's a multi-stage taxation. There are only two broader models in the world in taxation we have. In the consumption taxation, in the international model, we have only two models of taxation. Any rough guess what are those two models? No doubt one is multi-point taxation. The other one is, any rough guess? We are aware, these are all international forum discussion, broader discussion. The whole world taxation operates only in two ways. One, any rough guess? There are only two broad models. The second one is multi-point taxation or multi-stage taxation. The first one, I believe a lot of you are aware. Yes. There is something called as single point taxation. I think we are aware of this word. Without crossing this word, we would have not crossed our earlier levels. There is something called a single point taxation. What do we mean by single point taxation? At the manufacturer level, either they will tax, or at the retailer level, they will tax. Meaning thereby, the goods will be taxed at the manufacturer level. Once on this whole goods, if the goods is going to be sold for 1 lakh rupees, on 1 lakh, straight away they will tax. After the manufacturer, no one will pay tax, which is one model called as manufacturer, keeping manufacturer as a single point. Germany, majority of the European states followed a single point taxation for a long time on single point manufacturing point taxation, followed by retail point taxation, that is single point only, but manufacturer will not pay tax, distributor will not pay tax, wholesaler will not pay tax, retailer will not pay tax, no one will pay tax. Then who will pay tax? The entire tax burden of compliance will go to the retailer, retail point taxation. Today, majority of the, if I'm allowed to say, states inside the United States of America, actually you are not supposed to call like that, countries inside the United States of America operates only on single point taxation, which is at the retail end. Meaning thereby manufacturer will not pay tax, dealer will not pay tax, wholesaler will not pay tax, no one will pay tax, only one person will pay tax, retailer. See, somehow countries opt different model, they stick to that, we do understand. But the interesting part of this whole discussion is, these are all the different models that we have on taxation. On that, GST is a multi-stage taxation, meaning thereby manufacturer will pay tax, dealer will pay tax, wholesaler will pay tax, retailer will pay tax, consumer will pay tax. This is the part. When everybody is going to pay tax, no doubt, we all read this effect called as cascading effect, tax on tax effect would come. How you can reduce the tax on tax effect? By giving a benefit of tax credits. What do we mean by tax credits? Tax credits are nothing but at the time of purchase, whatever tax you paid. At the time of procurement of service, whatever tax you paid, that can be adjusted with your output tax. I procure a goods for 10,000 rupees, plus I pay a tax of 1,000. Now, after some processing, I sell it for 1,800. I'm liable to pay a tax of, I sell it for 18,000. I am liable to pay a tax of 1,800. What I would do, I would not pay the complete 1,800. Rather, already I paid 1,000 rupees at the time of my purchase. I will adjust that by way of a tax credit. I'll adjust that, for which I have to purchase from certain persons. I should have documentary evidences. All that is there. But I'm allowed to adjust, and I will pay tax to the government only on 800, which means I pay tax only on my value addition. One of the best advantage of GST, come whatever it might be criticized for by people, today you are really paying on value addition. Really, you are paying on value addition. See, there are blockages. That blockages will be there. If government says you will not be allowed to take credit, then no one can step in and say, no, I will take credit. There is no question of that nature at all. When government steps in and says you are not entitled for an input tax credit, then that discussion, I think, stops exactly at that location. It cannot get further extended anything more. Coming back here, getting into a small further discussion on this topic. When we go back for a world tour throughout the world, what is going to be the situation for GST as of today? Some country starts and stops taxes. How are we going to move with all this and all? Coming back here, when we go back to a world tour, all this starts with France coming up with the introduction of GST way back in 1949, 48, 49, 49 more specifically. From there, uh, they progressed, and then the European markets pitch in, and then various countries gets in, uh, one after the other, and many countries are brought in. As of today, roughly this number is a rough number. More than 147 countries have implemented GST. 3 or 4 countries have withdrawn from GST. One of the classic example, I'm sure, a Asian country who went back was Malaysia. Malaysia has went back. See, there was a political reason behind it. In a country like India, a few minutes later we will discuss the political environment. Uh, in a country like India, it's very tough to roll back GST. Rollout is different. Roll backing of GST is going to be very serious, and the, the implications would be multifold. I don't think so. A rollback of GST is as easy as what they did in Malaysia. Often people fail to understand. They start comparing countries. Singapore is like this, India is like this, this is like this. It's in my personal view, when you have all right to say two individuals cannot be compared. I agree and respect that view. You cannot compare countries. Countries operate at different background. Countries operate at different ideology. Countries operate with different thought process. Different leaders operate the country in different mood. A leader will be a more compliance oriented. A leader will be sometime a tough master. A leader will be okay, chalte yaar, whatever happens, okay. Uh, Based on the leader, the country moves. Now, why I want to highlight all this background associated with it is, often it is criticized. Now, you see a country like Singapore. I personally don't like this comparison. I am not sure. I'm sure today all of us are aware of many things. Singapore is a country of 173 acre square kilometer. Okay, that's all is Singapore. 173 acres square kilometers. 173 acres square kilometers. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of a very famous a uh, temple place in Chennai by name called as Mylapore, because Mylapore is the only place where every street you will have a temple. Okay, again, Mylapore is for many people, and you have to go back and research on Mylapore prior to its division in 1984. That side Mount Road, this side is Santom Beach, that side Adayar, I would not say even Adayar, Besant Nagar, and this side Tenampet. Puram, one area itself is not there. Mandavalli, one area itself is not there. Tenampet, one area itself is not there. That side and all, the other areas, Nungambakam, until reaching Nungambakam Mount Road, all are Mylapore. 143 acres square kilometer. So Singapore, you can equate it with Mylapore only in its land spec. Okay. Understand their business model there is different. Every bank in the world has an office in Singapore. Every bank. You name the bank. You name the bank, they will have an office in Singapore. Now, why they moved it as a financial capital. They moved it in a different way. Their laws are different. Every student who complete 10th standard in their curriculum, he or she has to undergo a 1 year compulsory military training. Can you have like a proposal like this in India? New education system itself, people are tearing. Now, why I want to highlight all this background? Because India is 43,200 acres square kilometer. Understand? It's not comparable. I don't want any of us to get into this mentality itself. See, for political trending, for instant decisions, and for various other virtual benefits to be reaped, people might be engaged in it. But when we in a very thought processed way, you go back and analyze. No, I don't think so. When it comes to certain comparisons, it make order. When the whole world is moving on to the GST, India been receiving constant pressure from World Economic Forum, and preferably much of the international organizations is pushing India. No, we have to implement GST. Some of the advantages and the models of the whole world is less exemption, single tax rate, goods and services are liable for tax plus 100% input tax. This is the simple model of GST. Be it goods, be it services, liable at a single rate. We will tax you at a single rate. Be it goods, be it services. Nobody questions anything. UK is the best example when it comes to single rate. Goods, same 14%. Services, same 14%. So the dispute whether it is a goods or a service does not arise. That's the advantage of it. And all services are liable for GST, except certain services by government. You have a HMRC guideline for UK, which will come out and say very small list, very small list. UK VAT, they call it as VAT, but again, in Indian perspective, VAT means every state will levy. Internationally, VAT means GST. GST and VAT are synonymous word in the international market, but in an Indian market, it will give a different wording. Now, coming back here, in the international arena, single rate of tax, common base, again 100% ITC, less of exemptions. But government tried to implement this GST. One of the biggest challenge to the Indian government is not available with all the 130 plus or 40 plus, 130 plus governments are. In all the 130 plus governments, one fellow is powerful. Okay. You take Spain, Prime Minister of Spain. You take Korea, okay, not North, South Korea, respective Prime Minister. You take Botswana. Botswana is a small country in South Africa. I'm sure you have heard of Nigeria, Tanzania, okay, like that, Botswana. Now, one of the advantage of majority of these countries are one dictatorship, single dictatorship, okay. Take a vast country like China, single dictatorship. In India, you have at the center level 1% and the state level 1%. So if you have many people, or to put it in a different way, the Indian federal setup was state on certain matters powerful, center on certain matters powerful. Now, here when it comes to GST, it's not state can do it in its own and center can do it in its own. State-center coordination becomes more important, for which a very detailed study is done, because Indian Constitution and Canadian Constitution will have some similarities. So based on the principles drawn from Canada and Brazil, we opted a particular model called as dual model of GST. What is dual model? Sometime later we will take it up. The whole journey of GST, when its timeline chart is concerned, it legally and officially starts sometime during 2006. 2006 budget, the finance minister, the then finance minister, ex FM Shri P. Chidambaram ji, would come out and deliver in his finance speech. At that time, he will say by 2010, max by 2010, we will implement GST. Now, based on that, some empowered committee of state finance ministers was formed, and they have reduced. At that time, we had something called a central sales tax. The rate of tax has been reduced, followed by under the leadership of a very nice gentleman by name called as Dr. Partha Sarthi Show, a very down-to-earth person. I have never come across a person like this. Personally, I have interacted with him. He was the advisor to the Queen of UK, and who has a very good knowledge on taxation and implementation of taxation. That is something very interesting about that gentleman. And under his leadership, a study paper was prepared, how GST can be implemented in India, what is a model based on all this, as form part of all those tax reforms committee, they have been part of it. Then a separate executive committee was formed, how to implement GST, what are the levy process, all that is being taken care. And a first discussion paper in India came sometime during 2009. So GST, a journey which is where some of us are groomed through on this journey, where for many years together we have been concentrated on this law. Somehow post getting out of the successful completion of a professional course by name called as Chartered Accountancy, where rarely people like specifically me with an ordinary talent and intelligence would move and scale through a course, and we were somehow confident that GST would come into place and Nalai Namade. So we've been waiting for it. Read the first discussion paper. I still preserve that book. Okay, a very simple book. Too much of thoughts. Okay, tomorrow's will be our future. We all could able to do something on this law. But again, it was not that easy for the then UPA government. One was ruling. UPA, I'm sure if you are aware of little political understanding, it is called as your Congress government, and its allies is called as UPA, United Progressive Alliance. Of course, GST requires a little pinch of politics to be understood. Then the UPA 2 will be there. Now you have your NDA in alliance, which is National Democratic Alliance, which is BJP. Front runner is BJP and its allies. So coming back here, NDA, this NDA was coming into place because UPA 1 gets over sometime during 2009, and then UPA 2 comes up with a lot of majority. People thought, yes, a lot more is going to happen. Again, different challenge. They moved a constitution bill, but 2011 onwards, if you carefully note, a lot of scam will come into play, this, that. Somehow the constitution amendment bill introduced by the then UPA government was given to a very natural death and was not at all taken up. Then time passed by. I'm not stepping much on those discussions. The next government comes in 2014. One of its agenda point was implementing GST. Came, appointed again a task force, brought in some modifications. One of the very serious modifications in terms of structure, in terms of everything, both were same. Big fundamental difference between both constitutional amendment is the Congress-based constitution or the UPA-based constitution amendment bill said all goods are liable for GST except petroleum products. Constitutionally on petroleum products, GST cannot be levied. That was the stand of the UPA government. NDA government or the current BJP government, which has been ruling from the forefront, that government, when it comes to their constitution bill, which they have introduced in 2014 end, that constitution bill, which was introduced by them as 122nd Constitution Amendment Bill, they are very clear. We will include petrol also. GST will be levied on petrol also. But when to levy will be decided by somebody called as a GST Council. In the old law, both fellows agreed on GST Council, everything. One more fundamental difference, which is in terms of their process flow, was somehow the UPA government was borrowing the international principle and said, we will levy one rate for goods, one rate for services. If it is goods, this is the rate. If it is services, this is the rate. Somehow NDA government want to bring back that old model which we follow in India, which is 4 slab rates. Need-based rate, a luxury rate. Need and luxury, that was their differences. If it is need, then it will be 5%. If the government feels it is luxury, then it will be 28%. And a middle rate, which is going to be 12 and 18. Which is little more in need, then you will say you will bring it to 12, which is little more relating to luxury, then it will be at 18. And more so, though we can speak like this, what was the earlier tax you are paying on that goods and services? They aligned it based on that. In any case, leave that. Often some of us who are all new to this stream, who are all learning this law, we all will criticize, see that country, see this country, they have one rate, this rate and all. Let's all understand. In our subsequent topic also we will take it up. You have been having a clear price war and rate war. There is something called as a rate war that was happening throughout India. There were rates in their own ways. In their own ways, everybody was charging it. Let me repeat. In their own ways, everybody was charging it. One state government will say, this is my rate. Another state government will say, today, thank God, this 4 rate will be the rate throughout the world. And a lot more is there to speak on rate war. On the relevant area of the next 2 slides later, I would take it up. Now, for the time being, that is a fundamental difference. Understand? Otherwise, both were interested, both were happy in implementing the law, both wanted this law to progress in a positive direction, all that was there. Somehow this government, the current ruling government, when they came in, they implemented it, and then it got its assent from the Lok Sabha, then a Rajya Sabha assent will it get, we are all bothered, and they got the assent from the Rajya Sabha. And then the president signed and it became a law of land. Somehow all those journey was easy to say, but it is almost close a decade of time. In fact, it has actually not taken a decade. The thought process to implement GST came way back in 1994. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of a tax by name called as service tax. The service tax was introduced in the year 1994 by the then finance minister, Shri Manmohan Singh ji. Of course, he was later the PM of the country, no doubt about it. But when at that time it was introduced, we had a nice economist by name called as Raja A. Chellaiah. Under his leadership, one committee was formed, and that committee's recommendation only is service tax, very popularly called as Raja A. Chellaiah Committee. In Raja A. Chellaiah Committee report, the first line of it is, pan-India, you should have a unified VAT levy, value-added tax levy. Let me repeat it. On those days, even now, in the world, if you go and say VAT, means it is nothing but GST. Okay. A thought was there. Fourth recommendation, leave second and third, which is not relevant for our discussion. Fourth recommendation was selected services has to be liable to service tax. At that time, in 1994, they could able to recommend or take up the fourth recommendation. First recommendation was thought in the Economist. Is it an economic decision? Yes, GST is no doubt an economic decision. Is GST is a political decision? If you ask, yes, no doubt GST is a political decision, because to pass your constitution, to pass the state legislature throughout India, you should have a complete control. 2016-15 are the days where more than 21 states, the respective NDA or NDA allies was ruling the country. More than 21 states, 29 out of your this states, 21 state that control was there. Here and there, we had Kerala always been ruled by different political government. We had West Bengal. We had, for everybody, some control mechanism was there available by the center controlled people. But somehow it was a political decision. Again, yes, you can analyze GST from a political decision perspective. Yes, no doubt it was a political decision too. It was an economic decision too. It is a need of the industry. Yes, it is a need of the industry. Industry people, preferably all the SME above. People who do more than 50 crores, 100 crore turnover, having 4-5 state operations, started to criticize the government because their cost of compliances and the cost is going up day by day. There was a clear cascading effect. They were not able to use any money. So all this was a challenge when it comes to those times. Followed by moving from all these three angles, getting into the other two angle of it. One is government had a clear international pressure? Yes. Is World Economic Forum, or it is going to be the various other aspects. People were started to push that no, we want implementing, and MNCs were very clear. Somehow the exit of Nokia, the sale of Vodafone has to be justified. Nokia had only 7 manufacturing plants in the world, and one of the top best manufacturing plant is the manufacturing plant in India. The manufacturing plant which is nearby to China had some challenges. The other manufacturing plants were all not comfortable. One of the best manufacturing plant was India, and it was closed down, created an international shake. When Vodafone was slapped with a show cause notice of 11,200 crore of tax payable, or non-deduction of tax to that extent, and a tax payable of 1,200 crores, something like that. Again, the whole system has taken a seat back. Now, how to patch all the sentiments, and again, as usual, how to bring in international players into the Indian market? We should somewhere unify the law. No doubt, it was a constant pressure from the international market, all your United Nations or World Economic Forum, or it is going to be various other organizations from that front. And the last but not the least, India never went for such a technology revolution prior to October 2017. October 2016. If my memory serves me right, it is October 2017 where Jio has launched its 4G connection. And just in a span of less than 5 months, it swept what players constructed that kind of assessee base over the last one decade. It could be its own competitors who was running on the flagship, be it Airtel, took one decade to come and reach a level of 1 million subscribers, which an organization did. See how he did it. He did it at free of cost. See, that's business strategy, money, power, synergy, all that comes in. But the core discussion for us was one of the need was technology was available at a throwaway price. Where someone comes out and says, till December it is free. Then again say, till March it is free. After that you extend. The whole market is getting shaken. And 4G was the nomenclature which is being used. And a law like this, pan India spread, need of information technology was high. That was also there. So are we going to call GST a technology reform? Yes. Mark my word, today, be it registration, be it filing of return, be it refund, be it your payment of taxes, be it any assessment, appeal, all are virtually online. You sit at Tamil Nadu and operate for 6 states, 8 states consulting. I know banks who sit at one state and operate 10, 12 state operations. Okay, they maintain it. Is it possible? Yes. That's because of the technology spread associated with it. And in our very humble view, this is one of the very important reform to this country itself after 1991. 1991, India opens up for the purpose of globalization, and more specifically from 1994, that opening up will take off. Similarly, the change, this is one of the important business change. Let me repeat, one organization, we know some of the full-time pan-India paint distributing company like Asian Paints has closed more than 6 or 8 godowns. One of the very top leading food supplement suppliers brand like Naga has closed down 4 godowns from 4 different states. See, 4 godowns for you is 4. For me, it is closely to a 10 crore saving. 4 godowns. That is the kind of rent they were paying. Rent alone. Leave rest all. Rent alone. Why today logistics, transparency, reporting, state barriers were opened up by the removal of check post. There is no concept of check post. There is no need to be verification as long as certain documents are there. A lot are there. So I think I've already touched upon all this. There would be a single market, seamless market, be it in terms of tax compliance, structure, invoicing, documentation, payment of tax throughout India, which was an aim for me. My senior partner will walk into every hall, every place where he goes only with one book called as Income Tax Act. I had a dream. One day I should also walk in only with one book, because never I used to have a excise, service tax, then a Pondicherry VAT, Tamil Nadu VAT, Karnataka VAT, Kerala VAT, all VATs, terminologies are different, processes different, forms are different. No syncing, nothing is synced. All are different. Thanks to GST, that law became constant. Everything is there throughout India. Same process for registration, filing, refund, appeal. Everything is same. There are no differences at all. So that plus some of the notable, I would say notable reforms are common rates throughout the state and common exemptions. What do you mean by common rates? As far as common rates is concerned, be it goods, be it services, throughout India, same rate of tax. Mobile phone in Tamil Nadu will be sold in different rate, in Karnataka will be sold in different rate. Because of that reason, they will sell mobile phone in Karnataka and report the transaction in Tamil Nadu. Fraud has already committed. Rice, if you sell in Andhra Pradesh, it will be taxable at 5% as per that VAT law. Rice sold in Tamil Nadu is exempted. What people will do is, they will sell the rice in Andhra Pradesh, report the transaction in Tamil Nadu. What kind of fraud you want? And why they do this? Tax arbitrage. Today, you sell goods wherever you want. Rate of tax remains same. You sell goods wherever you want. Exemptions. Throughout India, exemptions is same. This is something, a very great drift. If you look from an economy perspective, it's important, and it has to move in this direction only. Then only businessman can comfortably decide one point or one price, and he can spread throughout the market. He can do his goods, he can do his services throughout, only if this is possible. This is something associated with all these discussion, no doubt. Is it only positives are there? There are no negatives, Mr. Ganesh, if you're going to say. No. Tiny industries suffered a lot. SMEs struggled for their change. Um, Small time business house don't know what to do. It was a do or die situation for them. Why? Because this law is such a draconian law that it started to levy a lot of late fee, this, that, complaints from the technology, and people are all conversant with systems, access to system resources. Uh, for them, all were gifted, but people who are all lacking all this understanding. He would be a rice miller, he knows business, but when it comes to system, he has his own aversion associated with it. With due respect, lot of us still today carry that aversion associated with system process. If suddenly somebody speak little techie, we either withdraw ourselves from that conversation or we go in a mute mode. So why we lack that system? Suddenly people will say, no, that data integration should happen, and nothing great. He says they copy paste the data, that's all, but he'll say in his own style, his own jargon. But the point that we want to drive home here is those were the real time disadvantages. Of course, no doubt GST was placed next to demonetization. In fact, country was not revived from the demonetization itself. In fact, we had in November 2016 the demonetization into place. Once that is over, immediately by next July, we had the implementation of GST. As the time span was very, very little, the organizations were never revived. Preferably in the Indian market, the SME segment, SME's contribution is very big. And SME segment is one segment which preferably operate in a cash market than all those digital market currencies that we speak of. So when in a background like this, it was really suffering. It was really suffering. So those were the challenges. And again, even a small change, you require a change in the software. That was the biggest challenge. Now, again, those were accommodated by some of the big time software players. But there were challenges. I'm not denying stock transfers, but always you have to see debits and credits. What is last? Net positive. I would not say if you have 10 points for positive, you had 3 points for negative. But again, net positive, 10 minus 3 is 7. Yes, you stand at positive case relating to GST, and 3 years have walked down. Something very, very sensational is a lot of system changes, process changes, modality, refunds, and all is, mark my word, the organizations never got refunds like this easily. Somehow I feel, I know people who say to me, Ganesh, we make a refund application in US, with the next 60 days, it gets automatically credited to my system. I'm sorry, post-pandemic, that too, government is very clear in it when it comes to returning back the money. And applications filed, everything is through maximum 10 days. It is getting credited to the account. Again, if you export the goods on certain exports and all, maximum 7 days, money is getting credited. See, this is a very, very, very business friendly modality, and restrictions like within 60 days you have to pay is a good boost for the industries to take certain decisions associated. Coming back here, having discussed all this, on the last 2-3 points to take it up. One is on the model. As a model, India opted, I'm sure you all are aware, a very convenient model called as intrastate supply and interstate supply. Intrastate supply is a portfolio of transactions where both the government will have power to tax, central government and state government. Again, some of the union territories raised wise, we are also here. So those aspects were also taken care. So wherever places union territory is there, SGST will be replaced by union territory. Of course, GST law takes up a small stand here. If in a state there is going to be a if in a union territory, there is going to be a state legislature applicable. Or if in other words, in a layman words, if in a union territory, if there is a CM, then it will be treated at par with state. Delhi, you have the nice gentleman by name called as Arvind Kejriwal. He's been leading the state. Though it is a union territory, when it has a CM, it would be treated at par with a state. So it will be treated as an SGST. This side we have Pondicherry, again, which has the same facility. Why I want to highlight this discussion is Delhi and Pondicherry are not treated as union territory for the purpose of GST. It is treated at par with state. So it will be a SGST. Pondicherry SGST and Delhi SGST. It could be your Damandayu or Nagari Valley, or it is going to be now the splitted fellows of JNK, or it is going to be your Lakshadweep or Andaman Nicobar. All this is forming part of your UTGST. Coming back here, getting into, if a transaction happened between states, between union territory, between a state and a union territory, then it would be treated as an interstate supply where exclusively central government will pay tax. So this was the thought process. They said, yes, we will go in a model called as dual model. For already Canada, it is successful. Already for Brazil, it is successful. We will opt the same Canadian model in GST, and India went ahead with implementing it. Some of the taxes subsumed, a lot of you are aware, but just it's my moral responsibility to refresh it back here and go quickly. We'll go. Excise duty, which was levied by central government, got subsumed with CGST. Service tax, which was subsumed again with CGST, followed by, when goods are imported, we used to pay a levy equivalent to excise duty called as countervailing duty, and a levy equivalent to VAT called as your special additional duty, or a special CVD, some of us will call. All that are subsumed. Central sales tax, various surcharges, 17 plus surcharges was subsumed. Followed by, on the other end, from state government perspective, VAT, entertainment tax, betting tax, gambling, purchase tax, luxury tax, plus state government surcharge and all this. All are subsumed, and we would have only CGST, be it a hotel, be it a trader, be it today you have only 3 segments in GST. Either you are a manufacturer, or you are a service provider, or it is going to be a trader. You manufacture the goods and sell, manufacturer. You supply services, service provider, or you buy goods and sell goods. All 3 persons are brought into this net. Earlier, the situation was not like that. In the pre-GST regime, we had a different model. Now, that sums up our complete discussion relating to introduction to GST. Though I have the privilege of time, and I have the privilege to take it up the constitutional content, or otherwise called as the legal background for levy of GST. I'm refrain from taking it up because be the first day of the session. Let's get tuned for it. And from our tomorrow's session, we will take it up the legal background. I mean, the next session that we meet up, we'll take it up the legal background and important definitions, so that it set tone for a topic to be discussed. So come back here. Any questions on today's discussions or other aspects? Yes, we would take it up. Yes, quickly. Any points that you want to take it up? You want me to raise? Yes, you can always put it on the chat box. I would take it. Quickly. Yes. I'm just sharing 2 files to you, which is already shared. I made a mistake. One minute. Somebody texted me. It went to that person alone. Single point tax means, Ganapati has raised a question. See, single point tax means a tax will be collected at one source only. Today, Ganapati, in India also we are following this. For liquor, we collect tax at only at one point, which is at the manufacture point. There is a state excise called as, let me repeat, when it comes to liquor, there is something called as a state excise that is collected. That state excise is collected only at one point, a single point. Today, sales tax, otherwise called as value added tax, sales tax on petrol is collected at only one point. Only at one point it is collected. So these are all models at which it is getting operated. Nothing great about it. It's a one point. After that, no one will pay tax. At one point, they'll collect tax. Today, we pay on all the petroleum products. Majority of the state government operates only in single point. Manufacturer who sell to the respective dealer of petrol pump, when they clear, at the time they will pay 1 point. After that, no one will pay tax. In fact, there is no after that. Straight away the dealer, but generally only at a 1 point level. At the movement level, it will be taxed. After that, no tax for that. So that is what is called as a single point. Only at 1 point tax will be collected. Yes, so this sums up our discussion. Thank you, Ganapati. So we'll do one thing. So that's for the day. Thank you all for effective and patient listening. Thank you. And I have shared the files which was there on the whiteboard discussion today, just for your information. Can anybody confirm the receipt of it? So thank you, Balaji. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Harish. Thank you. Thank you all for effective and patient listening. Good day. Bye-bye.